Welcome back,
Dude,
everybody, to the Salted Orange podcast. My name is Matthew,
my name's Lee.
and we're glad to talk to you today again about some more religious things that are going on in the world of the 2026 year and all around that time, and talking about just things that people our age, which would be younger people in the church, might be questioning and talking about as two people who work in the field of religion and church.
We're young. I didn't realize we were young.
Well, think about the age of your churches.
I mean, my youth say I'm 45,
Well, there are
So,
churches that don't have youth. I'll point that out. From my experience working with that part, but we're not talking about youth today. We're actually going to be looking at churches in decline, because I think we see that often, especially in the areas we are, that churches kind of more than not close than are still open. I've seen the trends in just religion around the globe, that as more of this online sphere opens up, it kind of limits the physical need of a building in some way, shapes, and forms. And the easiest thing for a lot of churches to do is, you don't have young people coming into your building. You run out of people who are supporting you financially, your old population dies, and then you're suddenly left with a handful of people that can't keep a church open. How have you seen that, Luke?
I mean, I've seen it in some of the churches you've pastored, but also not saying you're, a church closer. It's like a baseball team. You're the closing pitcher. They send you
Oh,
in to close them out.
no, I do not
No,
want to
you're
be that
not.
person. It's not an easy job.
No, it's a terrible job. But yeah, I've seen it. Usually it's just usually a church that they have an older congregation and they just die out and they don't have the money. So they either do a consolidation, or they do, they just close it in general. So it's pretty sad. I mean, for the people that are in it, but it's also something that's needed sometimes.
Yeah, I think that's part of our side of this sphere, especially, me as a pastor, seeing that sometimes the easiest thing to do and the best thing to do for your church and the churches around you, if this is affecting you, is close the doors, because you don't want to keep trying to struggle through it and weighing down the people that are there putting in the effort to do all this work, to try to keep this thing alive that isn't really meant to keep going. And I think one of the things we don't talk about enough is churches have life cycles, and every so often, we have a big spiritual boom and people want to come back to church and more churches are necessary. But then there's periods, like I feel like where we are now, that we're kind of slipping out of that real need or desire for religion, rather. And it's harder to get people to come into a church, and then let alone maintain it with the few people that you do have that are still there.
Hmm. Well, and I think you can also hurt people's own spirituality if you make them think that this is the only thing that, this is what church is supposed to look like, and you're putting them in a tough situation where, they may be the only young family, or maybe the only new people in a church of like 10 or 12.
Right. And I mean, I see the expectation so easily. It's like, oh, I'm tired of doing all this stuff. I'm on the finance team. I'm on the board. I'm running this. I'm doing building maintenance. I'm literally cleaning the building. Oh, you're here. Great. Here's like a broom and a mop to start cleaning. It's like, we just want to shift those responsibilities. And I don't think that's healthy for anyone. And I see it a lot with small churches, especially where we are, that yeah, it might be time to go. And I did have a bunch of small churches when I started that, that was the first question I asked. So, how have you thought about consolidating? And they're like, don't even bring that up. We don't want to talk about it. And I went, wow, that's kind of crazy the hostility that is there with don't even bring up merging the churches that had literally less people in them than I can count on my one hand sometimes. So how do we solve this problem? Well, Luke and I decided, because we're young, to look at some of the things that people would use in our day for technology and allowing us to answer this question. So like any good millennial, Gen Z, Gen X, or even, we put it in AI to see what the AI would say. So we used a fresh AI just so we talk about the process of doing this. We used a fresh AI that neither of us had used, that didn't have any kind of sway on information that we might have put into it, to ask it a question. So this comes from Google Gemini. We wanted to talk about how do we deal with a church that is in a state of decline. So here's what it starts with. It says, to revive a church that is currently in a state of decline, you have to move beyond a quote unquote maintenance mode and start acting like a startup again. Requires shifting energy from preserving the past to reaching the future. So here's a roadmap that they talk about, and we're going to be breaking down these steps and see how much we agree or disagree with them. So the first thing is,
like
they said
a lot of what you say, just in the first little paragraph. I mean,
yeah,
there's some little like snippets that you might hear Matthew say from time to time, as I would think.
yeah, I definitely agree with what it says there to begin with, because it does require a shift in mentality. I might not say energy, I'd say mentality of, we're a church that's done this, to a church that we want to start growing, that we want to do things, and we not just want to survive. So, and I think people have to recognize that flip in their minds. But anyway, to the point, before I get too sidetracked and down a rabbit hole that we shouldn't go down, the first thing they say is identify the dead weight, the quote unquote dead weight. It's not talking about people, which is good. It says many churches are cluttered with traditions or programs that no longer serve a purpose but are kept alive out of habit. It says audit your activities. If a program hasn't produced spiritual growth or new connections within 2 years, it's likely a draining resources that could be used elsewhere. Try the why test. Ask of every meeting or event, if we stop doing this tomorrow, who outside of our current members would notice it happening? So what are your thoughts on that, Luke?
I go back to your favorite phrase. That's just the way we've always done it.
Oh, I hate that phrase.
Because that's basically what this whole point is summarizing. If you were to summarize it into one sentence, it's just the way we've always done it. It's getting rid of that mindset. As my pastor would say, are we, we're not going to do something just to say we did something.
Mm-hmm.
Is it really worth it if we're just saying that? Or did we have actually some kind of growth?
Yeah. Yeah, I think this point applies not only to churches that are in decline, but churches in general. If you start doing something and you don't know why you're doing it, that's a problem. And I talked about it. I've been doing confirmation and new membership class and talking about like the church traditions of the church. And I literally told them, it's like, if we're doing a tradition and we do not know why we do it, we should stop doing it or figure out why we're doing it in the first place, which is exactly what kind of this is talking about with the auditing your activities. We just kind of assume that what we've done and what we've always done will continue working. That's been a fallacy of the church since I don't know when, probably since it started in one way, shape, or form, until a group came through and said, hey, we need to revive or have a revival and try to do something different. They do something different that works for a couple years, and then they go, well, we've always done it this way, but it's not working anymore. What's going on? And I think part of that is we don't understand why we're doing a tradition. I think traditions are really helpful, and I'm a big believer in traditions of the church, but you have to know why they are doing them. I think one of the reasons why we do all this liturgy before communion or baptism or weddings is to know that why we are doing this thing. Why is it important for us to do it? If I'm just hand you a piece of bread and a cup of grape juice, you're gonna be like, what's this? Like, I this is not a good snack. I'd rather have a bag of Cheetos or something. But if I explain to you why I'm giving you the bread and the cup of juice, you're going to be like, okay, I got it now. And I think a lot of times that we just hand people the things and we don't tell them why we're doing it. And that goes on through, like, the leadership may know why it's happening, but you have to explain it to everybody who's in the church. Otherwise, those leaders go, they get replaced, they perish or move on with their lives. And the next group of people said, well, they did it this way. This has to work because it worked for us. And you have no idea why you do it anymore. So one of the things I like to talk about, and specifically with writing policies recently, is there is a renewal every year, at least, to review what you're doing, to make sure it's working, to assess, analyze, look at the data, because you should have data after a year. If you don't have data, that's another problem. Collect data. And if it works, great. If it doesn't, okay, how do we pivot from this thing that isn't achieving what we want it to achieve? We're not going to say it's not working, but we're going to say it's not achieving our goal. So how do we reach our goal using this in a different way?
I do like how it says 2 years. I agree with the 2-year mentality of checking out your programs, because I don't think you should just be immediately in this position of we need to get rid of things. It's more of like, maybe let's try to rework something, or let's just do a evaluation of what's going on.
Yeah, that's why I like the word audit.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great word.
And by the way, we'll have this answer in the description. I think Matthew forgot to mention that, but we will have this whole AI thing in the description.
That's why there's two of us, so we can remind each other of things. So the next thing it tells us, the next thing it tells us is it's about radical hospitality, which I think we all can do too. I think there's honestly just a list of things you should be doing as a church. Frame one, and then you can really need to focus on if you're declining. But it says under radical hospitality, a stagnant church often becomes a quote unquote insiders club where guests feel like they are crashing a private party. So it says do the guest eyes audit, which honestly, even better way, get somebody outside your community who doesn't come to your church regularly that that come to church with you one Sunday and tell you what they think. I do this when I go to other churches. When I go, I wonder what they could fix to really make themselves appealing to other churches. But it says under the guest eyes audit, walk through your building as if you've never been there. Is your signage clear? Is the lobby inviting? Does the quote unquote vibe say we've been waiting for you or we're busy with other things? And then you have to do frontline training. Your greeters and your ushers are the most important quote unquote marketing team you have. They should be trained to look for a person standing alone and make them feel seen without being smothered. That's a great point to talk about.
Oh my gosh, yeah, we're actually starting that in our church right now.
Yeah, I've been watching things, especially because my mother came with me to church this past week, and I know how she is, and I know how the church was, and I'm like, there's not going to be a problem because they're very outgoing in the same way. But I go, man, if I was somebody like me who is very introverted, who would walk into a place like that and go, would I want people like openly like trying to hug me right away?
Exactly.
Like, that might be a little.
Well, and what's weird is I went to a conference just a couple of weeks ago, and they talked heavily about having like the outside greeters, having people out in the parking lot helping, with directing and stuff like that. And me personally, I mean, I'm extroverted, but also like if I'm going to a new place, I'm not the person that's going to be super overly extroverted right when I go there. I'm more of an extrovert when I become comfortable.
I think it's everyone too. That's
and so experience. I'm thinking if you're just kind of like almost shoving that down their throats, like you got to be a little, I think you got to be strategic with it and not be just, act like they're your family and you're giving them hugs and all kinds of stuff. But this is honestly something that a lot of people have been talking about. So it's really surprising that AI is picking up on this, because this is something that a lot of churches are picking up right now.
I'm going to ask you a follow-up question that I got from what you were saying. Do you think it's bad that we kind of look at our church as a quote unquote family?
Mm.
I'll answer this too, so don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Wanting my
Yeah.
opinion.
I mean, I like it personally, because I feel like I have mentors in the church. Because I don't, right now in my own living situation, my parents, my dad lives farther away, so I don't get to see him as much. So I only get to talk with him on the phone. But I have people who are older than me, which is something you should do if you're. So yeah, just you need to find someone that's going to help you. But I also think that we shouldn't immediately try to be a part of people's lives, because some people aren't ready to have those personal conversations yet.
Good way to put that. Good phrasing. I think you kind of said it already, though. So to answer that question myself, um, yeah, I wouldn't want you to come up with me to me and hug me the first time we meet. So yeah, um, even with people like I've talked to online, it's a different way in person. Like I I'm not comfortable yet, and I think that's part of it. And yeah, you can pick and choose family, quote unquote family. But we also have to, I think about how authentic relationships are created. And you don't just go up to somebody in like, well, we'll throw any situation. You don't go to somebody in school. You don't go to somebody at work. You don't go to somebody at a bar. You don't go to somebody at a restaurant or wherever you are and just give them a hug and like start acting like they're your family. You get to know them and
Mhm.
start to know them, and that takes a little bit of time. They might not be comfortable for a while, considering you as quote unquote family. It just takes time. And I think the reason I asked the question was like, in some ways we kind of preach that the church is family, that you should be a family. And while I agree with that, I think also forcing people to be part of the family is not a good idea, because you hurt people instead of help them.
I mean, I think this point definitely doesn't sound like AI. I mean, it sounds like some of the conferences I went to, and it sounds like what people are talking about. So it's interesting to see that AI is just really talking about the same stuff as we are.
They're taking over, man. Not to get in
So
conspiracy, but
I was gonna ask you before we go on, what would you give like a 1 out of 10 on these last two?
on the topic, so you
Are
want me to
they?
take them
Yeah.
individually? Um,
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, I think they're both really good things to think about. I don't think the dead weight thing is kind of maybe the first thing you focus on. I might flip the order. Um, but if I had to rate them, I would say I like the dead weight a little bit more. So I'd say like it's like an 8, and I would say radical hospitality is like a 7. They're
Yeah,
pretty
I'm
good
about the same
ideas.
way. Mm-hmm.
And like I think there's a
The
lot
radical
more.
hospitality is definitely something that people are looking at in churches that I've been in.
Right. But I think also like the reason I didn't rate it as highly is like you need to be genuine and authentic about it instead of forcing it. And I
Mm-hmm.
think when you hear radical hospitality, where like we're thinking like I'm gonna go out of my way to, you know, give you $1,000 because you need money. It's like just like do more than you're doing. Like taking another notch up. If you have like think about like a dial that has like numbers on it. You just need to turn it up one. Make it a little bit more. Put a little bit more effort into it.
That's the way I would say it, is put some more effort into it.
Yeah. So the next point is talking about reconnecting with your neighborhood, which, yeah, another good thing right off the bat for me. It says a church survives only as long as it's relevant to its immediate surroundings. I'm going to say that again for the people in the back. A church survives as long as it's relevant to its immediate surroundings. So you want to be a quote unquote blessing station instead of trying to get people into your building to find out where people in your town already gather, like parks or sports games or coffee shops. Do a needs assessment, ask local officials or school principals what the biggest gap in the community is, whether it's after school care or a place for seniors to socialize. Meeting a physical need earns the right to speak to each other spiritually. And lean into digital and visual storytelling. The modern world, your quote unquote front door is your online website or whatever you use. If your website or social media looks like it hasn't been updated since 2010, people will assume that ministry is dead. So consistent branding, you need to use clean, modern visuals for your communications. Doesn't require a huge budget. Even simple, well-lit photos with real people in your community are more effective than generic stock images. And share your wins to use your platform to tell stories of life change, not only as a join us Sunday graphic post.
I agree with that
That's
a
a lot.
ton.
That's a lot.
Yeah. So I love the digital, but we need to go back to the reconnecting to your neighborhood, because that's something I
Mm-hmm.
feel like I've struggled with in my own ministry. Not like finding the places, but finding the people that are
Mm-hmm.
influential in the community that you need to be talking to. It's mostly because I didn't grow up in the church that I am serving at. So I've been here for 2 years, and I've got connected with the middle school, but I'm still struggling with the high school. So I'm finding those people is something that I'm working on every day, is finding those people who are influential, and making sure I am talking to them more often.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that reminds me of a seminar I went to taught by Chris Sledge, who writes a lot of books about church plants and stuff. And he said, I'm going to find one person and I'm going to talk with them. And when I'm done interviewing them or meeting with them, I'm going to say, who else do I need to talk to? And that's a great way to connect with people. So if you can identify one person, like there's somebody in your church that lives in your community, at least. And that's another point that I'll talk about in a minute. But talk to them first and say, well, who should I talk to? Who do you want to? Who should you who do you want to introduce me to in your community? And it's a really good tool for like pastors and leadership to get to know people, especially if you have a whole leadership team doing this. It's like, all right, well, I can take these like get 5 people if there's 5 people, and then then you easily double that to 10, and then it's 20, and then it's 30. It keeps going and going and going. And you can do that more exponentially than you can with just a pastor or a leader of the church
I'm gonna
doing
say this
something
is
like
not
that.
just a pastor's job. This is the whole
Yeah,
church's job.
that is the big thing that I think this is missing. Because we often think it's the pastor's job to do all these things, and it is in some ways, but it's also the church's job too. Because think about your pastoral leadership. You know, if you're United Methodist like we are, your pastor changes every 4 or 5 years if you're lucky. Sometimes sooner. Sometimes you do find someone who stays for a while. So the church really needs to be able to do it by themselves. Other churches, they hire somebody outside to come in and be their pastor. You have other places that assign people as well, that you get placed in certain areas, you get appointed to certain places. It's not often going to be somebody who directly comes from your community being put into your pulpit. So they're going to need you to be doing this work with them and could be the people they go to first to say, hey, you need to go talk to so and so. They run so and so thing. You need to learn with them and then build that relationship there, and go from that. And I had another point there and I forgot what the other point was, but
As I would say, though, I would say that when your new pastor comes, because I've seen this even in my cousin's church, where they have a pastor who they hire themselves, and is there for a relatively long time. Um, they're still somebody who's from outside the community.
mm-hmm,
So I say when that new pastor comes in, you should be able to direct them to exactly who they need to talk to. You should know those people. So that way, when you're talking with them, you can say, "Oh, I know who you need to talk to."
mm-hmm.
That way, they don't have to do the investigating themselves. You're able to direct the conversation.
And I think pastors are really good about that. too, because they easily find who in their church is the person that knows everybody. Like I have someone I can call them at any point in the day and say, hey, I need like nuclear waste, and they'd be like, well, I don't know why you need that, but here's a guy. Like I have people that can do that for me. And I think every church has people that can do that for them, but that takes years of times that, I'll be honest, pastors don't have. We don't stay anywhere long enough to build that connection. So we need people that can be doing that work for us. And if you're part of that physical location church that is stuck in one place because it's a building, then you need to be those people working more than the pastor even. Pastor obviously needs to do that work, but again, you're the ones there consistently. So do the work and help them out.
So on this one, what would you give 1 out of 10?
I think honestly, this is not a reconstructing a church from the brink of death, but just something you need to be doing.
Something just a normal church to do.
And I think it's honestly the number one thing we fail as a church is connecting to our neighborhood, because neighborhoods are not well defined anymore. It's hard to, like, I think about when I lived in bigger states that had like cities that just seemed to span the entire state, and the only reason you knew you were in a different community was the look of the buildings, or the one road sign that said, hey, you're in this town. I think that's just kind of the landscape of not just those places, but everywhere, because of just the reach we have with mobility and movement with cars and vehicles and other ways of transit, that we can drive 30 minutes to church, and that's not a problem when, walking 30 minutes to church wouldn't get you nearly as far. That'd get you maybe down the road. So I think when we have that ability to move around so much, it's knowing where you are and what's surrounding where you are, knowing where your people are, is another part of that. I think this leaves a lot out that we could add. So I'd say probably like a 5 or 6 out of 10. Probably 5. I'm going to go 5. Lowball it.
I would agree. I think it could be expanded upon. But I don't think it's something you need to revive a church. I think it's something that you should be doing when you're kind of just stagnant.
Yeah.
When you're trying to kind of just grow your church that you're in, that may not be small. It may just be medium-sized church. This is something that you can do to really grow.
And I think the only reason I really super like this idea is saying you need to meet the physical needs. And that earns you, essentially, that it shouldn't earn you a spot in your community, but it earns you I guess it earns you an awareness of, this thing is here and they care about us. Not, this is a building that's here that they just want us to come and help them pay their debts. I think that was another point that I want to talk about with the last topic, I think. Nope, it's on this one. We shouldn't be looking for money bags that fill our wallets. We should be looking at people who need full of God, and need their spirituality renewed, that are struggling, that are hurting. And it's so easy, and I deal with this sometimes. It's so easy to be money focused. It's so easy to be bogged down in the numbers. I think we talked about statistics and stuff in the last episode, but it's so easy to get caught up in those things because they're measurable. We need to be present with those, but we also need to, even more detailed, take a awareness of the spiritual health of people too.
So I like the next point a ton, and you've already presented it, but the consistent branding is so freaking huge. We talked about it, and we're getting ready to do a website revamp at my church. But we have generic stock images of our church with nobody in the church on our page. It looks like we just have an empty church. Nobody's in there. And that was the first thing we talked about, is like, it doesn't look like anybody goes to this church. and we don't have like good photos of just people worshiping or good photos of people just helping or anything like that, you cannot show that your church is alive or being, renewed if your church looks like it's dead on your website.
Mm-hmm. That's a really big point. And I think it's your church that has like a drone image of you like flying into the church or something like that.
Yeah.
The last church I worked at had that too, and it was just like a drone taking a picture of an image of the church, and I'm like, okay, this is cool. It looks nice. It's pretty, but I think we forget a lot, especially with our marketing, that the church is never about the building. It's always about the people and what the people are doing. And I think that is a big thing. It's nice to have an image or a brand or a logo. They're helpful. I don't necessarily give this as much weight as I probably should, as somebody who studied marketing a little bit. It's nice to have that to people recognize you. Doesn't need to be the biggest thing you use, but it needs to be what they associate with it. And if you're associating, your church with an empty building, because that's what's shown in your video, you're on your website, I don't think you're reaching people as well as you could.
Yeah.
Like,
And then the second point is honestly something that I've thought about a ton as well. I think we too much, and I've seen it in so many churches. I hate when it says at the beginning, it says, "Come join us."
Mhm.
I know that that's probably something that other pastors would say. They'd go against that. I think some older pastors would say that's important to say. You're supposed to say your service time and all that stuff. But I think people are more inclined to click on things when it's something that is not just Sunday worship.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, this one says share your wins. I mean, if you just think about history books, we write about the winners. We don't write about the losers, which is kind of funny. But also, like, people want to see like smiling faces on the page. They don't want to see like your huge list of like all these things that you're having at your church and stuff like that. I mean, it's good to have that transparency with people, but also they want to see pictures of people. And I'm talking older people and younger people. It's not just your older generation on Facebook looking at all your nice photos. Young people go crazy on Facebook and Instagram and all these other things. They death scroll, as I would call it, or
Mm-hmm.
do anything else. Like, they want to see smiling faces and stuff.
Yeah.
As I said, if you share your wins, it's more inclined for somebody to think that church is active, that church is doing cool things.
Mm-hmm. Two things. One, you're spot on with the imagery. Because I look at a church, I'm young-ish. I'd like to see churches with people my age there. And if I go to your website and I just see old people, I'm going to go, well, this is a church that's been around for a while, very set in their ways, potentially, probably, don't know how to use audio or internet or things as well as my generation does. Probably would be looking for help for that. They're immediately going to turn, hey, there's a young guy coming. Let's let him do everything. And I would be like, that would be a big turnoff for me. And like, I don't want to do that. Like, but if I see like you're welcoming young adults, you're welcoming older adults, you're welcoming seniors, you're welcoming children. If you got everybody showing up and they're having a good time, people are going to want to come because there's something going on there that's not just surviving your generation. It's multi-generational. It goes deeper than just the next 20 years. It goes on for an eternity or a lifetime. I think that's important.
And in my honest opinion, I would not. I would never say this in a meeting or anything like that, but I would not just show your church worship in your website.
Oh, yeah.
I would show everything besides your church worship. I would be showing what have you done outside of your church? What are your kids' ministries look like? what do your youth ministries look like? What,
Mhm.
like, and I'm not saying you have to explain them. Just take a picture
Yep.
and just show that there's people there.
Yeah. What are you doing? We want to see what you're doing.
Mhm.
If like, for instance, if you're using stock imagery, it's like, all right, well, this, whatever, they don't care. But if you're like updating your photos regularly, which is something we should be doing, they go, oh wow, this church is active, they're actually doing stuff. There's a new picture from, their VBS, or there's a new picture from this adult group that's meeting that went and did something. There's a group from this service team that went out and served a meal. Like, if we see those things and they're not the same, like every time we go look at the website or every time we go look at their page, it's uplifting that there's things going on and people want to do that. I think that's part of why we come to church, is we're looking for a thing that can connect us to people, but also connect us to doing God's work. We have to show we're doing that.
Well, I think we've beat this one to a dead horse because we both could talk about this for hours.
Yeah, I was going to say, we're just turning slowly into, how should you rebrand your church? Which is kind of the point, but not entirely.
Yeah. What would be your 1 out of 10 for this one?
I'm a big fan of the digital space, especially.
I feel like it hit the good points. I feel like
I do too.
Like,
I think there's a lot more, so I would say 6.
Really?
I
was gonna give it a 9. I think it hit it on the dot.
I think it's good. I think there's a lot more because it's like, it's kind of, when I read it, I'm going, you need to focus on your online, or you're not going to get anyone. And that's not entirely true. I think it's a piece of the marketing puzzle for a church, but the main piece is people. And it gets you there. It talks about that. We've talked about this as part of this conversation. And I think that's really what is kind of missing. They do highlight it briefly, well-lit photos of real people in your community. I would say not community, but your church, unless you're using community as your quote unquote word for church, which I use sometimes. But definitely, I feel like it's more marketing oriented and not people oriented. And I think a church needs to do that first. So that's why it's low. I think it does well with its marketing stuff, but it's obviously AI to me.
You disagree. I think it's a 9. I think it's perfect.
Well, there's our first disagreement of the day.
Yeah.
Well, let's see if we agree or disagree with this last point. The last point it says is empowering new leadership. I already like it. Spoilers. It says revival often stalls because the same group of people has been making every decision for decades. I'm going to say that again for the people in the back. Revival often stalls because the same group of people has been making every decision for decades. So it says lower the barrier to entry.
This is AI.
This is AI, not me. I'm just reading it twice for emphasis. Because I always say repetition means you need to pay attention to it. It says lower the barrier for entry, create a quote unquote micro volunteering opportunities to get new people involved with lifetime commitments. So that means, for anyone who's like, wow, that's a big word. Micro volunteering is like, get them to do small things to help you out. Hey, we need items for our food pantry. Can you bring a can of soup? That's a micro volunteer. And then they might be like, well, yeah, I really want to support the food pantry more. Can I come? Sure. Come food pantry day. We'll help you pack bags or whatever you give out to people. And that gets them to begin to get a commitment. So that's what micro volunteering is. You're welcome for an explanation. Because I know I don't explain things very well. And there's big words that people don't understand. There's the shadow method, the quote unquote shadow method. So every established leader should be shadowed by someone who is younger or newer to the church. This ensures that the culture is being passed on and gives the next generation a seat at the table.
It's huge.
It's a big one.
Mm-hmm. Something we forget to do all the time.
Oh, yeah. Well, I see it all the time. And the reason I repeated the first sentence of this, that the same people make the same decisions, as I look at boards, I look at committees, and I go, specifically in our churches, most committees are 3 years. That's what you sign on for. At the end of 3 years, we go, hey, do you want to do it again? and we go, not really, but and then we're like, well, who else is gonna do it? And we go, I don't know. Well, you got to do it again because we don't have anybody to do it. We haven't trained people to do it, and I like that shadowing method. And I think from a pastoral standpoint, and I think other people can recognize this too. It's like if I start a ministry, I'm immediately, and another thing I learned from that Chris Sledge, and I think it was Rachel Gilmore who was the other presenter. I think there's a book too about it. They say you have to make a ministry like you're going to leave it. So you start it, and as soon as you start it, you need to be finding your replacement. Like, don't wait. Don't even wait a minute. Just as soon as you start doing it, all right, who's replacing me? Because the moment that we stop finding replacements or shadows, it's the moment when you go, that ministry's dead because no one knows how to do it. There's one at my church that used to happen that was like an outdoors, like camping-esque kind of ministry. And the lady who ran it passed away suddenly, from what I understand. And it no longer happens. There's money in the budget for it, but nobody picked it up because it was her thing and no one else's. And we need to move into those situations where there is someone there to step in and pick up that slack, because we never know how long we have. Hate to be morbid, but we don't know how long we have. I know you're laughing at me, but we don't know. And if nobody knows how to do something, it just dies with you.
I think that both of these points kind of overshadow each other. You know what I'm saying? They're connected.
Yeah.
I think the way you start the shadow mentoring is you do a lot of micro volunteering with people. You let them do easy stuff. I think a lot of, and I hate this sometimes, you talked about it a little earlier with the sound thing. A lot of times when we have a new family come in or we have younger people come in, we immediately want to throw them into something. Sometimes it might just be better just to let them experience church for a couple weeks. Just let them settle in. They will, if your church is as active as you say it is, they will come to that ministry themselves because they will want to be a part of it. They will see the outreach. They will see how it's pulling those people in. I just experienced it a couple months ago with this lady and her husband came, and she came to us and asked us how she could be involved. And those are the people that you pray for and that you wish would be everyone that comes in your door, obviously.
Yeah.
But we didn't have to say, hey, you're going to do this. It was more like, here's this thing. If you want to help, you can. And I think some churches do it well because they create volunteer opportunities, and that's what you need to do is create, not necessarily, you need to be very transparent with your volunteer opportunities. So let people know what they're going to be doing, what the activity is. Don't make it something that's a lifelong commitment right off the bat. Make it something, hey, come on Saturday, come help for an hour or two. There's your volunteer for an hour or two. But just make sure in that moment that those people are really experiencing what that volunteering means, like what kind of job that they are doing.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, 100% agree. And I have my own story of somebody came to church. We were starting to do a crafting program, and by the third of it, the person who came was the one leading it. And I'm like, that was incredible to see, honestly. And I'm like, I didn't push them to do it. They found it, they came, they liked it, they got involved because that's their thing. And I'm like, great. I want to find more of their thing for people, and how we can implement that into the church. Like, And I don't want to say no to anybody's idea. I just want to help you foster it. Some of that might be getting people involved. And I think honestly, and I hate to sound sketchy like this, but it's not micro volunteering, it's micro asking. Ask them to start doing small things for you. Hey, if you want to be part of the music team or something, hey, what you think of that the hymns today? Did you like them? Were they good? Did you know them? What would you done instead? Take those notes. And you can invite them. Hey, if you want to, I think you have some good ideas. Come get involved. I'll go with you to choir. Practice or
Feel
music
important,
practice.
as I would say.
Yeah, make them feel important. And I think that's because everyone wants to feel important. I like it when my ego's stroked. I think we all do. You're laughing because you agree.
No, because I'm the person who has an ego as well.
Yeah, I mean we all have egos, but it's controlling it. And but it's also when you do that, it's not like you're stroking your ego for a negative reason, because that's what we kind of connotate around ego, but it's getting them to take ownership of something. And there's a lot of people I feel like in the church that are in any church. Like walking, I can see people who are underutilized because, as it said earlier, there are like 5 people doing everything, the same people. Find those people who are underutilized. And I think that's really helpful. And I can tell a quick story about it. Part of my membership class is making people do projects to give them ownership of something in the church. I want them to do something that they're called to do and want to be a part of. And so one of the things we have been doing at the church is been doing some movie nights occasionally. And one of the people's like, well, I want to do that. I want to do a summer movie series. And I'm like, great. And I looked at the outreach chair who was in that meeting with us, because I asked their mentors to come. And I'm like, you have somebody right here who's going to help you with that. And they're like, please do it. Please take it over. I have too much on my plate. And I think that happens. We just assume that, hey, this person's supposed to be running this department. They're going to do everything. No, we need help. So if we can give people things to take ownership of, that's great. And that's behind a requirement to complete membership for me. But for other people, it's how do we get them involved naturally into things that they want? And we have to, as leaders, think about those things, how to get people involved. Like one of the things I often look at with the church is liturgy. Who's doing the liturgy? Is it the same person every week? Is it somebody new? There's definitely more than one person in your church who's able to read and speak in front of people. Like, that's all you need to be able to do. And you don't even need to be able to do that well. You just need to be able to do it. Basic level.
I was going to say, I get up there and fumble all the time.
Yep. I do too. I can't tell you how many Sundays I go up there and I go, and I'm like, wait a minute, hold on.
I'm gonna write that liturgy down right there.
And I always go when that happens, I say, we need to pray for me for a minute that I can get my tongue untied and speak what I need to say, because it's going to be a problem otherwise. We're going to have to keep stopping. But I think anybody can do it. And like the great example is Moses. So scriptural tie-in. Let's go. Great idea is Moses going to God in the burning bush. I can't speak. Send somebody else. But God's like, no, it's you. It's you, dude. That's the 2026 Modern Interpreter's Bible. It's you, dude. Get out there, bro. Go pop off, King.
What would be your 1 out of 10 on this one? Because I feel like this one is very important.
I think it's super important. I don't like it for a revival of a church as much as I like it for a church that is trying to grow, because the more people you connect, the better you are. With that in mind, but I really like what it says. I do like that it's the same small group, making people aware of that, making people aware that they need to take ownership of their church and their community. I would probably say like an 8.
So do you think that AI has made us be able to revive a church and become, a mega church?
No, because I would have told you all of these points. I wouldn't have said it in the same way, but I think you said it. like this sounds like the conferences and stuff we're going to. So it's like it's nothing new. It's just pulling from the resources that are already there, which is what AI does anyway. But I think sometimes we need to hear it from somebody else, and especially
I
when
just think we don't know how to implement it. We hear all these great ideas, and we go to conferences, and we don't know how to implement it.
Well, my first step and my first recommendation is I have started a series called Rehash at my church, and it's just a hashtag. That's the symbol, which is really cool and modern. But the idea is that we can go hashtag whatever event we're talking about. So hashtag this conference that I just went to, and the person who went to it talks about what they experienced, brings back their notes, because we do so well with taking notes at these conferences, right? And then we just let them sit and they do nothing.
They collect dust.
Yes. So I'm like, I'm going to take my notes. I'm going to do it. I did a class on it. I talk about it. So here's the points that I brought up. Here's what I think about how it works for a church. You tell me. And we have a conversation about it. Now, was it well attended? No. Did it happen? Yes. Did I talk about some good points? Did we have good conversation? Absolutely. But I think it's a step to kind of get what you've said out there. And if people really want to know about it, they'll come. If people really don't want to know about it, they won't. And then we have to drag them there. Or we have to micro volunteer them to come and figure out stuff.
I was going to see if I could find my notes from the last conference I went to, just to show you that they do collect dust, but I can't find them, so they're obviously collecting dust somewhere.
They're somewhere so far away from you don't even know where they are. That was funny because we started today and I'm like, oh, there's some good things in my notes that I can get, but I'm not at my office and I know where they are, but I don't have them on me to give.
Final question for you. Do you use AI in your normal life?
I used to. I say used to because I realized how, I don't want to get controversial, but I don't like how it consumes a lot of water, or takes jobs away from people or anything like that. So I stopped. I've used it a little bit. I don't use it a lot. It's usually like when I get really, really stuck somewhere. And I think it has its purpose, but I don't think it should be like, hey, good example. I need to write a sermon.
I was gonna say,
first thing I do, go to Chat GPT, go to Gemini, go to whatever you use.
Write me a sermon.
Write me a sermon about this scriptural verse with ties to blank, blank, and blank. And make it an hour long. Wait, oh, that's too long. Sorry. Make it 30. Nope, still too long. Make it 10 minutes. Okay. And then it pops out a sermon, and it sounds like me. And then, like, it's like, no, I don't. No, it's got to be. I think one of the big things I pulled from today, and I keep emphasizing, and as I said, if it's repeated, it's important. So listen. Is it has to be human. It has to be about the people and personal. And I'm a big guy for authenticity, so like it's nice to have it when I need it to help me. Do I use it? Not really. How about you?
I use it a lot. I'm a very bad person when it comes to I think I'm a good writer, but my grammar is pretty terrible. And also like putting commas in, all this other stuff. It's pretty terrible. So what I usually do is I'll write what I'm wanting to write, and then I'll throw it through, Chat GPT or one of the other ones, just so I can get idea of where I'm, where my sentence structure is messed up, or where any of my commas are not right or anything like that. So it's pretty much just spell checking me or grammar checking me.
Yeah, it's like cleaning it up.
Yeah. So that's what I use, but I will say that one time I wrote a devotional and I just typed in write me a devotional about blank, and then I just copy and pasted it.
Yeah, it's just easy. It makes her a lot, like that's 5 seconds compared to like 2 hours or 3 hours it takes to think that up and write it out and flesh it out. I will say, like, I can get away with it.
Do that very often though.
I can absolutely get away with using AI because if you look at how AI is written, it uses a lot of like proper commas and grammatical marks, and I already do that. And my now wife said, when looked at one of the things I wrote, she's like, "Yeah, you can tell like you should just put it through AI," and that's what everyone would tell me. It's like, and you can do it because I look at it like you know how to use a dash in writing, you know how to use a semicolon. And I'm like, so it doesn't even look like it's AI because you just know how to do that. And I go, oh, I can kind of just use AI and people wouldn't know it's me. And I do like it for that purpose. And I think that's one of the things that I would use it for is like, I'm stuck. I don't like how this sounds. Help me. And maybe it'll give me an idea, but it usually never is the final thing for me.
If I ever use it, so a lot of what I use it for is I'll write what I want to write, and then I'll say, give me some ideas of other stuff that I can write about, or give me an idea of like how I can expand upon this idea. And it really helps you if you use it for that.
I think I use it. The one thing I use it for is I need an illusion and some way to like tie this in. I need like a story, an illustration, something to bring my point home. Give me something. I'm like, I can make it up, but there's got to be one out there. So find me an illustration that fits with this, and that helps because sometimes it's helpful to compare things to other things so people understand it. It's like saying something and then having someone say it for you. Before we get sucked away by AI, the final thought about this message, it says, a final thought on the spark. Revival almost always begins with a small group of people, even just 3 or 4, who are more frustrated with the status quo than they are afraid of change. That's big. That's like I feel like it's just Gemini just mic dropped on us. Is that cool now? I think that was when we were kids.
I love what AI says. I didn't send this to you, but AI says, are you looking for ways to present these ideas to a leadership board? Or are you looking for small practical steps you can start taking yourself on this Sunday? Go. I was like, it's so funny. It knows what's in your mind sometimes.
Well, it's been vetted. So, but I do think that's important. Jumping before we get completely carried away with AI as a conversation, which we definitely could do. Let us know if you want to hear about that.
Yeah.
I think it is important that it is a group of people, and honestly, it usually is the minority that want to do something new, but are held back by the status quo of what church has been, which is why I hate the phrase, we've always done it this way. Because I'm one of those people who wants to break it apart and rebuild it. And make it new.
Podcast that one day. We've always done it this way.
Yeah. I could
just
tell
to
you,
make Matthew mad.
It's okay. It's just, it flares me up a little bit. And I hear that, I'm like, hold on, I gotta walk away for a second before I start screaming obscenities. I'm just kidding. I wouldn't do that. I have to breathe for a second to not just be crazy.
But this will be in the description. So what I want people to do is give us your thoughts. Look at the points. I mean, obviously, we are given all of our opinions. These are not, facts to revive your church. This is what AI has told us and what we think, and what we think of what AI is telling us.
Yeah, I think
so. Let us know what you guys have done at your churches, or if something has sparked in you that a new ministry that you're going to do at your church. Because I'm always looking for ideas as well. So if there's an idea that you have at your church, maybe it'll work at someone else's church. So just make it a community down there and let us know what you think.
We don't have to force them to make a community. If you are inclined to leave a comment, please leave a comment.
You have to comment.
You have to
watch this video, yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. No, I like I like the ideas that is presented here, and I will say, if you're worried about your church, for whatever reason, if like this is speaking to you on a like deep level of just your recognized communities, talk to your pastor, talk to your leadership team. I definitely recommend including your pastor in that, because they want to help. It's our job to be shepherds of the community, and we can't help if we don't know what's going on. So loop us in, tell us.
Yeah. Comment in the comment below your big rant.
If you are inclined to do so. All right. Well, thank you guys for hanging out with us and enjoying some conversation. Thanks, Luke, for your thoughts and the idea and all the good stuff you bring to your half of the podcast.
I guess I do my best.
Well, that's what we're here to do.
You know, this guy went to school for it. I just have crazy ideas.
Hey, we need crazy ideas in our church. Can I get an amen? There's no one in the back to give me an amen, so unfortunately,
yeah, I always
don't have my
enjoy
guy who just
though.
say amen. So can I get an amen? There's a guy in the back. Amen.
I
Don't
hate
have that today.
this side thought before we finish. I hate when pastors are like, "Can the whole church say amen?" And I'm like, they should already know when to say that. You don't have to like instruct them when to say that.
Yeah, maybe a good topic is participation in sermons, because I've been doing that a lot more lately, and that reminded me of that. So maybe we'll write that down. Maybe that's next week. Who knows? But it's funny because I have some people who start going, "Oh, he wants us to actually say something here." I get one person. I'm like, "Thank you, person, for saying yes or doing something, breathing." That'd be fun. But before we get into a whole nother podcast episode, thanks for being here. We appreciate you all. Have a great week. Let us know if you are wanting to in the comments. Share this with your friends. Make sure you can. That's an easy way for you to micro volunteer to help us out. Ooh,
the subscribe button,
liking, sharing. You can make a Facebook post. You can make a post on whatever thing you use now. To let people know what you're listening to. If you thought this was a good idea, share it with your youth group, your leadership team, whoever you need to share it with. We'd appreciate that. And if you want to see more from us, subscribe, follow us. We're both on YouTube and Spotify, so hang out with us there, and we'll see you in the next one. Anything else, Luke?
We love reading comments. They're so much fun.
Comments.
We miss the comments.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you again, and we'll see you in the next episode. Bye.
Bye.